Now that we went over how to count the houses, we're going to go over what the houses mean exactly. So, for the rest of the series, I'm going to use my preference, and that's the North Indian style. They all have the same information. This is just my preference. That is it. If you do prefer the South or East Indian style, it's the same information. Literally, it's all the same. The houses mean the same thing. The orientation is literally the only thing that's different. So we're gonna go over the houses in general, but we're not gonna go over the signs because it's gonna be like too much all at once. I don't like to listen or do videos that long. So for this house right here, this house is the first house. It represents the self, the personality, the strengths and weaknesses, really how you appear in this life as a person. How do you look type of thing? What do you look like? The first house is your face. It's your body. Like, what do you look like? How did you come onto this earth? It's your rising sign. It was the time that you were born, the time that you came out onto this world. That's your body. So now we're going to move on to the second house. So now we're on the second house. This house is about like family, the throat. It's also your voice and your accumulated wealth. This house can also tell you about your food habits and also potentially your source of death. Moving on to the third house, that is self effort. It's also the house of courage. People with placements in this house usually have like a lot of courage. They're very like experimental. This house is also about experimental stuff. Also, it's the eighth from the eighth, but we'll go over that in another time. But this also represents your neighbors, your siblings, it really can also represent just social settings, maybe even like online. We're gonna move on to the fourth house. This represents your mental peace, your mother. This can also represent your home country. We're talking about the house, just the fourth. So this can represent your home country, your mental peace, and that's also the dead of the night. It's the darkest part of the chart. People with placements in this house, they tend to live near funeral homes, or cemeteries. Just really depends on what's going on in your fourth house, but we'll go over that later on. This is also real estate, immovable assets. Really, the home can also represent like vehicles and stuff that you really can't just pick up and move like a backpack. So this is a fifth house. This not only represents your children, but your creation, your mental inclination, your past life karmas, basically what you bring from the past life onto this one. And it also represents speculative gains, if I didn't mention that already. Now we're on to the sixth house. So this one can represent loans and debts, health, in particular like illnesses and diseases. Of course, this house can also be like services and also like open enemies. This house can represent animosity, sorrows, court cases, conflict, those type of dealings. Now we're at the seventh house. This one is about partnerships, also open enemies. This can also represent sexual diseases, and this is also the source of death. But we're of course we're not gonna go over it until we finish everything. The seventh house can also represent or show you what your partner may look like or act like, in a marital sense or a business partner sense. Now we're at the eighth house. So this is more about like transformations, longevity, so how long you're gonna live, and death like experiences, spiritual experiences, other people's money, inheritances, things of that nature, things that are also taboo as well. Now we're on to the ninth house. So this is about the father, spirituality, teachers as well. This can also represent fame, long distance travel, spirituality, things that influence you, your morals as well. If this wasn't mentioned already, this can also represent fame, fortune, and higher education. This house also points to your reputation in society and your career and your recognition and also your achievements in society. Moving on to the 11th house. So, this house is about more of a connections, wishes, and dreams, fulfillment of desires. This house can also represent elder siblings and also trending topics like what is of discussion, what is being spoken about. You can find that in the 11th house, or if you are in the 11th house there, those particular planets can be spoken about without you even trying. Now we are at the 12th house. The 12th house is about isolation, spirituality, um, expenditures, nonprofit organizations. It's really about spiritual liberation and not being attached to the material realm and being more connected to the spiritual realm. And finally, this house can represent foreign residences. So, living overseas, like if you live in Nigeria and move to Brazil, that kind of thing. So, we went over like all the houses, and now we're going to get into more stuff.